Hey, Evan here, one of the co-founders of Homegrown, and today I want to tell you how to price your products for profit. A lot of vendors get stuck on how to price their products, and frankly, the best thing is to just get started and start selling. If you start selling your products underpriced, you can always increase them later. If your products are not selling and you're struggling to sell, you can always lower the price later. But I'd like to talk to you about a methodology to use to make sure that your products are actually selling for a profit. So let's hop into it. There's a trap that we want you to avoid, which is basically being busy but not actually making money at the end of the day. Revenue is not the same as profit. Revenue is your top line money that you sell products for, and profit is what you take home at the end of the day. So the goal is for you to make money profitably. And common mistakes is that you break even. You also maybe forgot to pay yourself or factor that in. And most vendors, when they come up with pricing for products, they only calculate ingredient cost and think, oh, I'll charge 2 to 3 times that. And typically that's not enough for profit, especially if you're starting to get some sort of scale in your operation. So here's why pricing or underpricing hurts your business. The first thing is that you work for typically less than $5 an hour because you're not properly pricing in your time. And then also what ends up happening is that you work really hard and often into the late hours of the night, and then you don't make any real profit from it. And so you end up resenting the work that you started doing. And then also what happens is that you can't get better ingredients and innovate on your product. Most of the time people are in this because they're passionate about what they do, not necessarily just want to make money. It's part of it, certainly, but really to be improving your product, your packaging, and your overall experience for your customers is the goal. But if you price too low, you can't reinvest back into better ingredients. And if you're not making money or you're not making profit, you're going to struggle to grow your business, and eventually you're going to burn out and quit. And our goal is for you to be successful in the long term. We want to help with that. So at the end of the day, pricing or underpricing doesn't help anyone. If they want cheap, they can go to Walmart. But if they want your products, we want to make sure that you're doing the right thing to attract the right buyers and selling them profitably. So here's the simple pricing formula. Your price is going to equal materials plus labor plus overhead and then profit. Or another way to think about this is your total overall cost, so your cost of materials, labor, and overhead, and then mark that up 3 to 5 times, depending on what your overall market can handle and how good your products are, and also how early you are as a business and how much relationship you have with your customers and what kind of trust that you built. Generally, if you're just starting off, you want to start at the 3x mark. But if you just can't keep up with demand, you want to start increasing your pricing slowly to 5x your total cost of goods sold. So the component one is materials. Materials is everything that goes into your product. Now we have all kinds of vendors on Homegrown. We have people that actually sell fruits and vegetables. We have people that sell bakery items. We've got people that sell jars of pickles and also stuff like pre-made smoothies. So there's a very large number of different types of products. But as an example, if we're going to use sourdough, you want to take into account your flour, your water, your salt, your starter, and the bag and label. So all in, your actual material cost is $1.50 per loaf. Now, this might be kind of small. If you're in the sourdough world, you might tell me that's actually too little, and that's probably correct. But as an example, you basically want to take all of those things as your material cost and add them all up. Now, the next thing is we want to actually factor in your time. So what kind of labor would you need to replace yourself? So if you were to find somebody who you trained for a few weeks, what would you end up paying them? And then, pick that, what would you have to pay them in order to do your job? Likely that's anywhere from $15 to $30 an hour for most artisan food products. And so you want to basically factor in your overall time to produce each loaf, in this example of sourdough. But generally, if you can get better at your process, that's the goal, is you want to reduce overall labor cost so that you have more profit margin when you sell your products. And so this is something that you can actually play around with by building out better systems, getting better equipment over time, and doing things in batch versus just one-offs. So you can flex this, but that's how you can basically calculate your overall labor time. So for example, if it took you 3 hours to make 12 loaves, that basically means $15 per loaf, and your rate is $20 an hour. Your labor would be $5 per loaf. Next, you want to look at your overhead. This is your fixed costs generally. This is stuff like electricity, gas, market booth fees, business licenses, accounting software, your homegrown subscription, equipment maintenance, all of that. And then you want to divide that by the number of units that you sell per month to get your overall overhead every single month. So if your overall monthly costs were, in this example, $300, and then you divide it by the number of units that you sold, which would be 300, that would be $1.50 per loaf in the sourdough. The next one is profit. So this is what we want to keep at the end of the day. This is the thing that you get to pay your bills with. You get to buy fun stuff with, maybe go on that vacation once or twice a year, depending on the scale of your operations. But this is the money that stays in your actual pocket. This is not your labor cost or your salary. This is the thing that you're going to use to also invest in equipment, save for months that you're not selling your products or slow months, and also making this mental shift to where the business is worth it. For most vendors, your target profit margin after all of your cost of goods sold, which is your materials, your labor, your overhead, is a margin of 20 to 30%. You want to make sure that you're actually getting this profit in how you price your products. So an example, again, of a sourdough loaf is that your materials cost $1.50, your labor costs $5, and your overhead is $1.50. So overall, your cost is $8. So in this example, you would need to multiply this by 3 and sell it for $24, or you want to multiply it by 5 and sell it for $40. I'm going to guess this is a little overpriced for most sourdough. Probably in most markets, the sweet spot is $12 to $18. In this case, I would suggest basically how can you adjust your labor and overhead costs so that you're making more loaves. So instead of making 200 loaves or 300 loaves, you're making, which is actually a lot, but let's say you can reduce the time per loaf down to 5 minutes per loaf, something like that. It would be more efficient. Or overhead, you might look at if you're paying for expensive, kitchen equipment, or maybe there's ways to lower your overall subscription cost. Homegrown, our goal is to be as affordable as possible. So I think right now our pricing is $10 a month if you pay it annually. So we're trying to make it as affordable as possible for you. So the next thing is, you've got your overall minimum price and your premium price. And another thing that you need to factor in is your market. So if you are selling sourdough and you've got another person in your booth or someone that sells locally or a bakery that you're competing with, you don't have to be the same as Walmart or Kroger, but you do want to look for similar examples to yours. So other vendors, see what they're pricing. You don't have to do exactly what they're doing. Maybe you're able to provide more value, or you've got a better brand, or it's easier to shop your products, or it's more convenient because you offer a pickup location outside of the farmer's market. There could be other ways that you provide value outside of just the sourdough loaf itself. But most vendors land at 3 to 4 markup and make it work. So here are some common mistakes to avoid that we kind of mentioned earlier. The first one is only calculating ingredient costs. So if your overall cost, I think in the example before it was $1.50, but in this one it says $1. Don't just multiply that by 3 times 5. You want to factor in your labor. And also here is undervaluing your labor. Paying yourself $5 an hour when you first start out for a month or two is okay. When I say paying yourself, I mean basically factoring that in as a cost. But as you start to grow and the more time and money that you invest into your business, you want to make sure that this is a more livable wage. And it would be easy enough to swap somebody else in here and get help as you scale. Another mistake people have is copying competitors' pricing blindly. You don't know if that's too much or too little. They could not be selling nearly as many products as you. You don't really know how many they're selling. You also don't know how long they've been at the market, what kind of history they have with their customers. So don't copy people blindly, but you can use it as a reference point. Also, don't be afraid to charge more. What I found in business over the years is that the more that you raise prices, generally the more value that you provide. Part of buying something in a factor is that if you underprice it, they feel like it's bad quality. And if it's a premium price, they're going to feel like it's better quality. So you can also, when you sell stuff for more money, provide better ingredients and use better equipment. So keep that in mind, is that generally selling stuff for more is not a bad thing. It generally allows you to create a better product. And then another mistake is to never raise your price. Your cost should go up, and eventually our subscription costs will go up to cover inflation as well as like grow our business. And the same goes for you. Like you should also start to slowly raise your prices over time. Once you have enough demand, then you can start to raise your pricing. So go ahead and research your market. I would suggest visiting 3 to 5 farmers markets in your area. Keep an idea around the pricing for similar products. See who's busy, see who's not. Kind of get a sense for how many people will actually walk up to that vendor, look at the products, and then walk away. And you can use all of these as an example to basically calculate your price. And like I said in the beginning of the video, if you start at 12, you can also slowly ratchet up from there and get better and better ingredients. Now, here's when to actually start charging premium pricing. Here's some good reasons. The first one is unique ingredients. So say you have stuff that's organic or forage or some sort of like unique supply chain thing that you have going on. If you have unique ingredients. The second thing is special techniques. So maybe you have traditional methods that something's made or longer fermentation times. Another reason would be if you have any certifications. Maybe competitors are selling stuff for less, but they don't have the certifications that you have. That is of some value to some people. And then I would say that your brand and a strong story is probably the most important part, having a strong brand. One of the things that's really important to us on Homegrown is that when they go onto your online storefront, it looks professional and it actually increases the value of your products being on Homegrown. So in that, it's like branding is part of this, and you want to increase the value of your products by the look and feel of your storefront as well as your brand. And then lastly is exceptional quality. If you have people that reorder your products and they love it and they're really happy about it and people rave about it, it might be time to raise your pricing. Premium pricing isn't greedy. You ultimately are trying to create a great product and you want to charge for that. So we just discussed this earlier, but maybe not necessarily premium pricing, but when is the time to raise your prices, even if you're not trying to be premium, is that your cost increase significantly. You sell out every week, you have more demand than you have supply. If you haven't raised your prices in 12 months, or this is also important, is you're exhausted and barely profitable. Sometimes it's better to make more money on a smaller number of products and have better margins on that than sell more products for a lower price margin. Here's some examples of how much to price increase. So you could do a small, people typically won't notice it. Significant, you might announce it to recurring people, and then major, you might post it as a premium and tell people how and why it costs more. Don't make it about yourself, I would suggest. Make it about the value to the vendor, or not the vendor, but the value to the shopper. So telling them, hey, we're going to increase our pricing for our sourdough from $10 to $14, and we're doing this so that we can source locally made ingredients and invest in better products and better equipment to better serve our customers. Something like that instead of, hey, our costs have gone up and we're struggling. People don't want to hear that. They want to hear what's in it for them. And they're typically understanding that you'll eventually have to raise your prices. Now, how do you know if your price is right? Your price is too low if you sell out immediately. If your customers, you hear them saying, wow, that's so cheap. You're exhausted and barely making money, or you have a wait list. Your prices are too high. If your products rarely sell, you have a lot of leftovers every week, and customers walk away when they hear the price. The price is just right. If you sell 80 to 90% of your inventory, customers buy without hesitation, you're profitable and you're paying yourself, and you can reinvest in your business. Now, what you can do is to raise one product 10%, and if it still sells well, that's your new price, and just go up from there. So here's I'll go ahead and move me out of the way, and you can basically screenshot this as a little worksheet to come up with your cost and your price. And then after that, you want to go basically getting into this new mindset shift. And what we find is that some vendors have kind of like a scarcity mentality or a poverty mentality. And we want to get you away from that and have this sort of abundance mentality where you are in it, you believe in yourself, you believe in your product, you are providing a value that you see as valuable to your customers, and you don't feel guilty when you're charging a premium price. Now, you can always make exceptions if you want to people that have been legacy customers to yours. Maybe for some period of time, maybe 6 months, hey, you'll honor the previous price for them. But all in all, you should have confidence in your products and what you're making. So don't feel guilty. Grocery stores are going to have industrial ingredients. They're going to have preservatives. They're going to have underpaid labor. They're going to have little to no connection with the overall maker of the product. Whereas your products are going to have real ingredients. They're going to have your skilled hands. They're going to support your family. And you're going to develop personal relationships with your customers. At the end of the day, they're not just buying their product. They're buying a relationship with you. And that's part of the thing that makes it so special. So they're building quality, community, knowing where their food comes from, and supporting their local economy. And to some people who can afford it, that's worth paying for. So in kind of summary here, what good pricing achieves is that you pay yourself fairly, you cover all your business expenses, you have profit to reinvest, and you sell most of what you make. Customers buy without price objections, and you can sustain this business in the long term, and you actually enjoy it. You make enough money to where they can either provide for a living for yourself, or this is the extra side hustle that you have that enables you to meet your retirement goals or your travel goals or whatever that is, or buy that new truck or trailer or whatever it is. So if you're burnt out and you're broke, your prices are not right, and you need to fix your prices and ultimately fix your business. So here's your action plan: is to calculate your true costs for your top 3 products as a simple starting point. Use the 3 to 5x formula to set minimum and maximum prices. Visit 3 local markets and note what your competitors are charging. Then pick your final price and stick to it for a month and see how people respond. And then next is update your pricing on Homegrown. This is very simple. Just go to products, hit edit, and then you can add different variants, and you can also change your pricing here. Try to make it very straightforward, and then once you're done with that, hit save. So have confidence in yourself and make it happen. People typically like round numbers, so stuff like 10, 12, 15 makes it easier for cash sales, and it feels more premium than the 99-cent thing. That certainly has its place, but if you're trying to have a premium product, I would confidently tell you to just have a round number. Now, some common questions is, what if customers say it's too expensive? You should have a good answer for that, and something that you regularly say to yourself and something that you could say to them. And that could be something like, I use quality ingredients and pay myself fairly. The price reflects real cost of labor or local food. Grocery stores use cheaper ingredients and industrial processes. Have confidence in yourself. It's okay to have some pushback, and that if you're getting no pushback, that's probably a problem. Now, what if no one buys? The great news, like we said in the beginning, is that you can adjust and change your pricing, and most people are not going to notice either way. So if you change it one week and change it back the next week, it's okay. And I'd give it a few weeks though, because it takes customers a little while to adjust your pricing. And the next thing is, should you discount for pre-orders? I would actually suggest that you sell pre-orders to customers as a guaranteed availability. A lot of people want to build their pantry and their kitchen full of locally made products, but it's really inconvenient to actually go to a farmer's market and show up and then go, man, they don't have the stuff that I need. And that's one of the biggest barriers we see to people regularly buying products from people, is they're unsure about availability. And so that keeps them from showing up and picking up your products. Having additional pickup locations also makes it more convenient in case they can't make it to the farmer's market or they're traveling. So having a porch pickup or a farm stand is really helpful to get more customers and sell more products. So don't just pitch the pre-order as a actual benefit to them. So likely you're not charging enough. You're probably not charging enough, or you're probably underpriced, and you're not charging too much. So you need to know what your product's worth and be confident, and don't undervalue your time, and have confidence in your business. So go ahead and go into the Homegrown dashboard and update your product pricing, make it incremental, and yeah, best of luck. We're cheering you on.